Give them the forecast.
The guilty must be punished for their crimes.
Ancient sands, heed my command and reclaim these relics of hatred!
Melina, if this is the last time that we...
Okay. Captain?
Who are you?
I am vengeance. I am the Spectre.
Although Omega level is typically a term used to describe the power levels of Marvel's mutants, today we are applying it to the whole realm of heroes. Even some of our favorite insanely powerful ones from the distinguished competition, DC. See what we did? That's what we say over at Marvel. I said that like I work for Marvel. I definitely do not. I wish. Marvel, call me. Spectre is super powerful with or without a human host. Of course, he is also at a god level, a hero who is based in the spiritual and supernatural realm. The Spectre is believed to be a fallen angel who became penitent, seeking forgiveness from the Presence, basically DC's version of God. The Presence decided to grant him such and made him the spirit of vengeance, one who would deliver justice and punish those who had sinned. When bonded to a host, that person gets access to many different powers that put whosoever is the Spectre at an omnipotent level. At his most powerful, he can also see the outcome of many things in the universe. In Kingdom Come, he used this power to put a stop to Superman's rampage, and he was also powerful enough to defeat Parallax as well. And friends, before I move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd and you love when we talk about powerhouses, be sure to check out our most powerful playlist. Number 9, Photon. Monica has been through so many different costumes and identities since she was first introduced, but through all of the different names she has worn, she has remained one of the most powerful heroes around, thanks to energy manipulation and energy transformation powers. In case you didn't know, Monica can change herself into any form of energy, and while in her energy form, absorb energy as well. Before Monica was Photon or Spectrum, she was Captain Marvel. In fact, she was actually Captain Marvel not only before Carol Danvers was, but before Janice Vell, Mar-Vell's son, even was. Monica only gave up the mantle of Captain Marvel, the name we originally knew her under, because Janice Vell wanted to take over that mantle. And that isn't the only mantle Janice Vell took up that originally belonged to Monica. He's also gone by the name of Photon as well. Yeah, Janice Vell just loves taking Monica's names, I don't know. Number 8, Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman was recently an all-powerful, all-knowing god. However, she ultimately ended up returning to the land of the living. But still, for a time, she was definitely more than Omega, which is why I got her here. And I'd argue there have been other moments in Diana's history when she has been beyond Omega as well. When she became a god following the events of Dark Knight's death metal, Wonder Woman gave up her life to save the universe and all realities, and as a result became one of the most powerful cosmic entities in pretty much all of the DC multiverse. Of course, that was only a time in her life, or I guess her afterlife. Currently though, she is back to the world of the living and is returning to her regular but super powerful superhero self. Number 7, Atom Eve. Atom Eve is probably one of the most powerful superheroes that I've fallen head over heels in love with the more that I come to know her. She hails from Image Comics, specifically Invincible, and its comic book universe. She is the main love interest and partner in romance and in business to the main character of the Invincible series, Mark Grayson, aka the superhero Invincible. But she's also so much more than that. Atom Eve is Samantha Eve Wilkins, a powerhouse in her own right who I might argue is actually more powerful in a lot of ways than even Mark, who is pretty much off the charts in terms of power levels himself. Atom Eve can manipulate matter on a molecular level, effectively allowing her to alter reality, albeit on a smaller scale than some of the others that are on this list. Number 6, Dr. Fate. Known for being the most powerful magic user in the main continuity of DC DC Comics, we have Dr. Fate. At least that is as far as heroes and I suppose mortals go. However, it should be noted that Dr. Fate has sort of immortality too as well, granted to him by the magics of his powerful artifacts that belonged to the Lord of Order, Naboo, the original Dr. Fate. So he is anything but your average mortal. Ken Nelson spent a long time as Dr. Fate, but now we have a new Dr. Fate as well, his grandnephew Khalid Nazur. Even when Khalid just took up the helmet, he showed a natural knack for wielding its power, handily defeating a demon. Dr. Fate can also travel the multiverse and even possibly exist across multiple planes of existence at once. Number 5. Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange is one of the most powerful magic users in all of Marvel Comics. To contrast Dr. Fate. Who is Doctor Strange? He's the Sorcerer Supreme in the Marvel Universe. Or he usually is anyways. He was dead recently for a little while, but even while dead he was quite powerful, contacting another version of himself and getting his self to help solve his own murder in Death of Doctor Strange. A past version of Strange was summoned to get sleuthing, and through this, Stephen was even able to return to the land of the living temporarily. Ultimately, he knew that doing so would come with too great of a cost if he were to actually remain alive, kind of breaks the natural order of things, and fight against the inevitability of his own death. So he only came back temporarily to defeat some baddies and then he kind of like faded away once more. Although he is back permanently, I believe, again now. So I guess it's all in how and when you come back from the dead in terms of it being magically approved. This resurrection is magically stamp approved. Number 4. Squirrel Girl. Despite no longer being fully considered unbeatable, thanks to a defeat that is implied to have happened off-panel in the 2018 volume of Fantastic Four in issue number 43, Squirrel Girl still has defeated a lot of menacing and often unbeatable villains in Marvel Comics, and has also helped to reform some major villains as well. In fact, this is kind of Doreen's whole secret to success when it comes to beating her foes. She usually does so by simply befriending them and encouraging them to just like do and be better. Well, I don't know if this would work everywhere throughout every universe or every multiverse that exists, you still have to admit that her list of victories is pretty impressive. Doreen is inspirational and honestly it's contagious. And while she has lost once at this point, I still think her track record of beating almost all villains she runs into makes her one of the most powerful characters that we've probably ever seen. While her mutant powers might not be at an Omega level or above, her friendship abilities most certainly should grant her that status alone. I mean, almost no one can seemingly stand against her, so. Number 3. Ex Nihilo. If we get Ex Nihilo in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it will probably mean the coming of the Builders, which would be a whole world-destroying event. So if we get this powerhouse, we know we're in trouble. Worlds destroying, actually, since they basically obliterated multiple planets in order to reset the universe and start again because of what they had learned about the coming incursions. Ex Nihilo was known as one of the Gardeners. He was created by the Builders, as were all of the Gardeners. Their goal was to perfect species on planets and create life, which sounds great, until you realize the level of power needed to do such a thing. Ex Nihilo could both create matter and manipulate time. We don't know the full extent of his power level in this regard, but I would assume both would be on a planetary scale at least, just based on the purpose of why his character was created. Number 2. Vulcan. Vulcan is Gabriel Summers, the youngest Summers brother who had a really messed up childhood. / honestly kind of no childhood at all really. It was a rough time. And who happens to be the most powerful of all the Summers family kids. Scott has his optic blasts, and Alex has his energy conversion. But Gabriel has what is possibly a limitless amount of energy manipulation and absorption. He's off the charts. He can take in tons of raw energy and just hold it within himself to use or channel that energy elsewhere, redirecting it, which is honestly pretty crazy. Vulcan has been classified many times as beyond Omega level in the comics by various people including Rachel Summers, and I think his niece herself would know a thing or two about power classifications that are off the charts, considering she is also an insanely powerful mutant in her own right. Number 1. Dr. Manhattan. Dr. Manhattan can warp reality as he sees fit. It doesn't get more Omega than that, honestly, especially when you consider the level of control that Dr. Manhattan has exhibited when utilizing his reality warping powers, and in some cases the level of restraint. I mean, when you can just fix all of reality in like the blink of an eye, it takes an element of control to simply not do that. It also takes a level of knowledge to not mess with the timeline, at least not too much. There was New 52, which was later connected to Dr. Manhattan, but only really in retrospect. In essence, he's one of the major causes of the New 52, at least as far as the reasoning goes within the canon. Dr. Manhattan might be a little too ambivalent for some to consider him a hero, but overall I'd say he is a force mostly for good. He just usually doesn't get involved because he's so OP, and this means that he kind of sees other beings and their issues as generally being, well, kind of beneath him. Yeah, not a very typical heroic mentality, but Dr. Manhattan also isn't your typical hero, being that he originated from Alan Moore's Watchmen. Number 10, Darwin. As we discussed in part 1, the term Omega actually comes from Marvel's world of superheroes, and specifically mutant kind, where the classification is used to denote a being who exhibits the utmost capabilities and control when it comes to their power set, making them the most powerful being with said power set. For the purpose of this list, however, we'll be using the term to simply talk about heroes who are so overpowered that they are considered god tier or beyond Omega, if you will. Darwin actually happens to be a mutant, and though on my part 1 I kind of shied away from mentioning Marvel's mutants on that list because we had already discussed them on their own Beyond Omega list, someone that wasn't on that list and hasn't officially been classified as Omega or beyond, or at least I don't think he has yet, but that I think probably should be considered such, is Darwin. Darwin's mutant power allows him to adapt and evolve his body and power sets as necessary for situations as they arise, and he's proven in the past just how powerful and deadly he could be. We also learned how valued the Children of the Vault considered his power set to be when they set out to capture him so that they could incorporate his powers into their own evolution, when Darwin was sent on a mission with fellow mutants, Sync and Wolverine, aka Laura Kinney, inside the Vault. You know your powers are crazy when the Children of the Vault are like, we need that. We gotta mix that up in our thing. We want to be able to have that power. Number 9, Nova. The Nova we're talking about here is Richard Rider. Rich was given the powers of the Nova Force by one of the last surviving members of the Nova Corps, who was forced to pass his powers on as he was severely wounded and dying. Stumbling upon Richard Rider on Earth and hoping that the human who received the powers would carry on his mission and use them well and wisely. I mean, if you gotta give powers, you gotta give powers, you just gotta cross your fingers and hope. As Nova, Richard Rider is insanely powerful and also gains access to a wealth of information being directly linked to the Xandarian world mind, which grants him all the knowledge that Xandarian culture has amassed over the years. The Xandarian world mind can also take control of Nova as needed, and protects him against mental attacks. Although he also kinda needs it to keep himself stable, because without it, the sheer power of the Nova Force will overwhelm his mind and body. So it's like a blessing, and it's also kind of like a weakness. Number 8, Captain Atom. Captain Atom hails from the DC universe, and is kind of similar to Nova in terms of the idea and look of his character. His power set is based in nuclear power and quantum physics. His origin story is somewhat similar to Dr. Manhattan's of Watchmen, at least in the New 52 continuity. However, instead of being altered by a tragic accident there, he volunteered for an experiment which ended up going kinda wrong, resulting in him being seemingly atomized. Later on, he would reappear as an energy-based life form though. Yay! And then obviously, superpowers. His powers allow him to alter reality, create force fields, and leave him superhumanly powered when it comes to strength, speed, and durability, making him pretty much invulnerable as well. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want more lists like it, you can also check us out over on Facebook, where we have tons of goodies coming your way, and you know, if you follow us there, hopefully we'll have some more cool stuff coming your way soon, because there's definitely lots of cool projects I'd love to do. Can't talk about them, but check it out. There'll be more stuff soon. Number 7, Silver Surfer. The Silver Surfer was gifted with one of the greatest powers in the Marvel Universe, that of the power cosmic. He's known for often being the Herald of Galactus, at least initially, that was his claim to fame, and that was how he was granted his power as well. Previous to that, Norrin Radd was simply a man who sacrificed his own life to save his planet and the lives of those he loved, including his beloved. He ended up pledging himself to Galactus so that Galactus would spare his planet and became his herald, forgetting his previous life as he was imbued with the power cosmic and taking up the mantle of Silver Surfer. In the future, seen in Thanos Wins, not only does Silver Surfer have the power cosmic, but he also has the black matter powers of the Fallen One, taking up the mantle in the future as he makes his final stand against King Thanos, also wielding Thor's hammer, Mjolnir, as well, being considered worthy enough to wield said hammer. He does not succeed in beating King Thanos, unfortunately, but this version of the character is still super OP. If I was King Thanos, I wouldn't want to face that version of the Fallen One. I'd be like, no, not gonna do that. Number 6, Superman. Superman, especially before his power set settled, was a pretty crazy powerful guy. Back in the old days, Superman's powers were actually whatever the story called for them to be. So basically, he could do it all. But even now that his power set is more concrete in modern storytelling, more established, he's still known for being one of the most powerful heroes around. Not only is he invulnerable with super strength, but he's also super fast, and super smart as a result. One power I feel like people always overlook is his speed, and his capacity to learn things extremely quickly as a result. It's like the best speed reader ever. While Superman might not be as fast as the fastest of the speedsters in the DC universe, the fact that he has this power combined with all of his other ones makes him insanely well-rounded and unstoppable when he needs to be. There's also an alternate version of Superman, All-Star Superman, who gets his powers boosted to an insanely high level but becomes so powerful that his powers are basically killing him. However, once he ends up merging with, fixing, and in essence living on the sun, this surprisingly prolongs his life and also allows him to remain super powered. Unfortunately, in that last year before he left the Earth, he was like, I'm gonna do a lot of cool stuff so that I leave you guys in a good spot, because I'm gonna die. But then he didn't die, so it's all good. Number 5, Molecule Man. Molecule Man started out being a major villain, but later on, much later on I guess, before he seemingly dies, he redeems himself by joining forces with the Future Foundation / Fantastic Four in an effort to return the Marvel multiverse to normal by reconstructing it. While aiding Reed Richards, Mr. Fantastic, and his family in this quest, Molecule Man was unfortunately killed. However, it should be noted that Molecule Man kind of exists across the multiverse, and parts of him were actually used to like tether said universes that were reconstructed. So in a way, he could still be alive. He kind of was still potentially able to come back, but then they gathered his pieces and they got stolen, so I don't know if we'll ever see Molecule Man again, but I hope so, because I'd love to see him more in a hero role. Molecule Man is Owen Reese, whose powers allow him to manipulate matter at a molecular level and warp reality. He has at times placed mental blocks in his own mind to prevent himself from using his powers to alter living life forms. He seems to go back and forth when it comes to him being able to alter living organic material as a result. And while he is really powerful when it comes to reality warping, he also is still quite squishy, which is why he's ranking lower. And also, you know, he was a villain for a long time, I acknowledge, but I'm just here to see Molecule Man be a hero, friends. I'm just here for it. Let me know if you also want to see Molecule Man come back and be a good guy. Number 4, Raven. Raven is a hero that we don't normally hype up when we're talking about like the most powerful ones out there, and yet she really is. Although she struggles sometimes with her darker side, when she can keep that in check, Raven is actually one of the most powerful magic users in the world of DC. That's right, I said it. And that's pretty impressive considering how many heavy hitters there are in that realm, in the magical realm. What also makes Raven so powerful is her dark heritage, so being able to harness that energy while kind of keeping it in check can make her extremely powerful. Of course, there is always the risk that Raven will turn dark, but it's important to remember that she is a hero first, and while this has happened to her before, she always ends up coming back to the side of good in the end, because ultimately Raven defines who she is and wants to be, as opposed to allowing her heritage to define her. I also always think of that future Raven from Teen Titans Go, who becomes the goddess of the universe after she defeats her father Trigon. She's really powerful there. Also, I know people are going to be like, wow man, a Teen Titans Go? Really? Is that where we're going? I like Teen Titans Go, guys. Sorry, I said it. I like it. It's funny. It's ridiculous. Number 3, Adam Eve. Adam Eve is probably one of the most powerful superheroes that I've fallen head over heels in love with most recently. She hails from Image Comics, specifically Invincible and its comic book universe, and now also its animated universe. She is the main love interest and partner in romance and business to the main character of the Invincible series, Mark Grayson, aka superhero Invincible. But she's also so much more than that. Adam Eve is Samantha Eve Wilkins, a powerhouse in her own right, who I might argue is actually more powerful in a lot of ways than even Mark himself, who is pretty off the charts powerful himself. Adam Eve can manipulate matter on a molecular level, effectively allowing her to alter reality, and what's more, she doesn't use her powers to create like unlimited wealth or anything selfish, but instead at one point actually takes a break from superheroing to travel the world and help those who actually need her help in third world countries ways and could benefit from her powers and her abilities. Basically, she's being a real world superhero. You know what I mean? She still got superpowers, but you know, she's using them to just do good things on the ground. We also learn much later in the Invincible series that she is basically immortal and cannot die. Kind of spoilers, but also Invincible's been out for a long time, friends, so if you haven't read it, sorry, you should do it. You should go read it. Go check it out. Number 2, Jean Grey. As I said before, I tried to stay away from mutants on part 1 of this list because I felt that they had been mentioned a ton when it came to the whole Omega and beyond Omega categorizations. However, if we're just talking about superheroes who are beyond OP when it comes to beyond Omega, then at some point I kinda do need to talk about Jean. And so here she is on our part 2. Jean isn't just a powerhouse because she's tied to the Phoenix Force either. While she has been the Phoenix multiple times, she also is powerful enough just standing on her own. In fact, I think Jean is so powerful that she often holds back because she knows just how dangerous fully letting go would be. She's seen the darkness in herself and what a threat it can be if she taps into that. Jean is often depicted as being very much in control of her powers in modern comics because I think over the years she has learned how important that is with someone who is just as much of a powerhouse as she is. Like if Jean wanted to, she could probably do a lot of crazy stuff. But she's like, I probably shouldn't do that because it would be a bad idea. Number 1, Dr. Manhattan. I mentioned Dr. Manhattan on part 1 of my list, but really only in passing. He was mentioned in another point, but he wasn't the main point of that point. I figured I couldn't do a Beyond Omega superhero list without mentioning him, but I didn't really want to give him a spot on that part 1 because at the end of the day, he gets hyped a lot. We talk about him a lot on this channel. That being said, he does deserve it. So as soon as I heard that we were doing a part 2 for this list, I was like, okay, I gotta give him a spot on this one. I can't deny him that. And unsurprisingly, here he is all the way at the top because yeah, Dr. Manhattan. Dr. Manhattan can basically warp reality as he sees fit. In essence, he is one of the major causes of the creation of the New 52, at least as far as reasoning goes within canon and continuity. Dr. Manhattan might be a little too ambivalent for some to consider him a hero, but overall I'd say he is a force for good. He just usually doesn't get involved because he's so OP, and this means that he sees other beings and their issues as generally being kind of beneath him. Yeah, not a very typical hero mentality or attitude, but hey, Dr. Manhattan also isn't your typical hero, being that he originated from Alan Moore's Watchmen, which itself is its own fantastic universe that examines heroes under a different perspective, which I think we all could use a little bit more of when we're reading comics. Number 10, Iron God. So what does Beyond Omega mean in regards to this list? Well, Omega is typically a term reserved for Marvel's mutants, and it's used to classify the awesome level of their powers. To be Omega in a mutant sense means that you are basically the most powerful mutant within that specific power set and type. Here we're kind of using that term more to discuss just some of the most unstoppable god tier level heroes and beyond who could do just about anything. Like Tony Stark, surprisingly. That's right, even Tony Stark got a god tier power up when he became Iron God. Who is Iron God? It's basically Iron Man imbued with the power cosmic. Using his newfound power, Tony, who is also struggling with his longtime god complex, decided to use his newfound power to make all of NYC as smart as he was. Except for Reed Richards, who believed he was actually made somewhat less intelligent due to this change. Typical Reed. He's like, not me though. Tony, I'm definitely smarter than you, so this didn't help me. Number 9, Sentry. Sentry is the greatest hero that Earth forgot. In the Marvel universe, he is basically like DC Superman, but quite a bit more messed up when it comes to his origins and at times his approach to fighting baddies. In fact, Sentry himself isn't just one of Earth's greatest and most powerful heroes, he's also one of its worst villains, as residing within him is also the persona of the Void. The Void is the reason the whole world basically had to forget that Bob Reynolds was the hero known as the Sentry. In forgetting who the Sentry was, he disappeared, and with him so did his alter ego, the most villainous and deadly Void. Sentry managed to rip Ares in half, he's so powerful and violent. In fact, he ripped a lot of people in half. That's kind of his thing. Although he did also suffer some payback when Null, during the King in Black event, killed him by ripping him in half in kind. what can I say? Karma comes for us all in the end. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want more lists like it where we talk about some of the most powerful of the most powerful, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 8. Cersei. Cersei is literally one of the most underutilized characters when it comes to Marvel in my mind. Overall, I kinda just think the Eternals deserve some more hype. I mean, Kieran Gillen is doing a fantastic job of hyping them currently, but there were a few years there where they were just dead. Literally, they were dead. Cersei as an Eternal has powers that allow her to not only control every atom of her body, but also allow her to control all matter around her as well. And she's also quite charming, a dangerous combination. At one point she uses her powers to completely disable Iron Man in the current Eternal series while having lunch with Tony Stark. And guess what? Iron Man remains powerless to stop her. It probably helps that he feels safe enough around Cersei to not need to have his guard up when he's going to lunch with her, but still, the effortlessness demonstrated by Cersei here is impressive. While Cersei struggled in the MCU to defeat Tiamat alone, even there her powers proved to be essential to ultimately winning the day, with the help of course of her connection and the other Eternals' connection to the Unimind. The Unimind fixes all I don't got enough power problems. At least I think Cersei and Tony Stark were having lunch in that Eternals issue, by the way. That's Eternals issue number 5, by the way, if you're looking for it. It's lunch or it's brunch. Maybe it's brunch. Does seem like a very Cersei meal to have. Number 7. The Flash. Barry Allen's The Flash was literally so powerful that he was able to alter the entirety of reality when he went back in time to save his mother. In doing so, he also kind of broke reality and it was up to him to set things right, which he inevitably eventually did. He was also the only one powerful enough to defeat the Anti-Monitor's plot to destroy realities using his reality decimating machine, but he seemingly had to give up his life in the process. And unfortunately, this didn't defeat Anti-Monitor in the long run, but he did destroy the machine, and that was pretty challenging in and of itself. Wally West, on the other hand, who is our current Flash, doesn't really have any flashy, pardon my pun, stories quite like those, but this is mainly because Wally's Flash actually tries not to do things that would mess up the timeline in the first place. Sorry, Barry. Which maybe makes him even more powerful. He's also faster, so I think we can consider both these Flashes super overpowered and at god level or beyond when it comes to their Speed Force abilities. Number 6. Binary. Binary is one of Captain Marvel's aka Carol Danvers' alternate forms. As Binary, Carol was basically raw untamed energy, similar to that of a white hole, which is theoretically like the opposite of a black hole cosmically speaking. If you haven't heard about it, check it out. There's some pretty cool theories about white holes online. And to this day, she still taps into some of her binary power every now and then, as needed. The version of her in the MCU that basically looks like she's gone God mode with glowing eyes, glowing hair, just glowing all over, that is basically the vibe that you get from Binary. And if you're a fan of Carol's Binary days, we have some good news for you. Binary will actually be returning in Kelly Thompson's current Captain Marvel run. It's been revealed that Binary will show up in issue 38 in May 2022. But this new Binary apparently is like a separate entity from Carol and also has a pretty great and subtle new redesign that still pays great tribute to the original and to Carol. So if you want more of this powerhouse character who might also be spinning off into her own entity, be sure to check that out. I think that's super cool. Every time I hear something about what's going on in the Captain Marvel comic, I'm like, I need to read that. That sounds good. I do like my Captain Marvel comics. Number 5. White Lantern. There have been a lot of powerful Green Lanterns and other lanterns with colors from the emotional spectrum, but one of the most powerful types of lanterns out there is probably the White Lantern. And one of the most powerful White Lanterns that we've seen in comic book continuity has to be Kyle Rayner. White Lanterns in general are rare, as you have to be able to harness and represent all colors of the spectrum, as it is when you combine those that in theory you get that bright white light. White Lantern, you know? It's how light works. Kyle ended up being the most all-around powerful Green Lantern when he proved that he was capable of becoming a White Lantern. He used his powers to save the world and in the end was also smart and strong enough to give up the powers of the White Lantern, knowing that it was basically too much power to just wield on the daily. And that to me is one of the strongest things you can do. If you have a ton of power, Wolverine has also done that before, you get so much power and then you're like, you know what, I'm just gonna leave this here for another time. I don't need it all the time. That's powerful. Number 4, Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange is definitely one of the most powerful heroes around when it comes to the Marvel Universe. Sure, he did just die, but that's really only because he was fine with dying and knew that if he remained on Earth, it would inevitably mess up a lot of stuff. But he could have returned from death if he'd really wanted to, so just want to put that out there. That's just how powerful he is. In the What If Disney Plus streaming series, we also learned just how terrifying Doctor Strange could be if he put his mind to it when he became obsessed with gaining enough power to bring back his love Christine Palmer from death. He succeeded, but also ended up destroying the world as a result. But also, that's pretty weirdly and quite tragically OP. Number 3, Divinity. Divinity is actually from Valiant Comics instead of being from either DC or Marvel, the two big publishers of the North American comic book world. Remember Bloodshot with Vin Diesel? Bloodshot is also from Valiant Comics. Ho-ho! Divinity himself is Abram Adams, a Russian cosmonaut who was in essence granted godlike powers during a trip to space. He returned to Earth and understanding just how powerful he had actually become, actually only ever interfered when a threat great enough presented itself. That's just how souped up he is. He knows better to get involved with conflicts of a smaller scale because he knows just how much damage he is capable of doing. To me, that's like kind of some Dr. Manhattan vibes. Or well, partial Dr. Manhattan vibes. I feel like Dr. Manhattan also sometimes just gets involved in stuff because he's like, what would happen if I just did that? Interesting. I like it. Or he's like, interesting. I hate it. I'm gonna go to space and just let you guys do your thing now. Bye. Number 2, Scarlet Witch. Scarlet Witch has literally used her powers to change all of reality, warping it so that we got the reality belonging to House of M. But beyond that, she's also lately seen some redemption in comics when she helped the mutants to access backups of those previously lost to them so that they could resurrect those mutants. This all happened in Trial of Magneto, where it was revealed that Wanda could basically open the door to those mutants and their minds thanks to her connection to them and their psyches because of House of M and M-Day. She goes through a little waiting room and she's like, here's everyone. Sweet. Hard for her to get there though because she's got a lot of trauma. Which I think is not only a super cool idea and super cool story, but it also makes Wanda pretty important and powerful overall. Considering without her, we actually wouldn't get to have all the mutants that we lost prior to mind backups being a thing with Cerebro. Because we didn't have backups. We were like, we don't got those. They're not on file. These people are lost forever. But only because we have Wanda do we get those back. Pretty sweet. Number 1, Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman is literally just coming off of being an all-powerful, all-seeing god pre-future state, where she got a glimpse into a version of the future. Enter future state. A future that we were told was going to happen in main continuity, but now it's not really happening because Dark Crisis is what's happening. You dig? Wonder Woman gave up her life to save the universe and all realities, and as a result kind of became a cosmic godlike entity. Of course, that was only for a time in her life, or I guess her afterlife. She's now back to the living world and will be returning to her regular but super powerful superhero self. Or she might possibly be the Amazon to die in Trial of the Amazons, where one important Amazon will be lost to us, although it seems more likely that she'll just be dying as part of Dark Crisis, because that's also supposed to happen. Otherwise it might be one too many deaths for Diana to have happened so recently. I feel like 3 deaths in recent comics maybe is a little much. 2 deaths, however, 2 deaths where one of them you became like an all-powerful like god-like being, that I can take. I'll accept that. I guess she didn't really die, she just kind of like transcended, but it's kind of a form of death.